Hey guys, what's up? Killjoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have a new backdrop. Pretty sweet, isn't it? Today I'm going to be ranking all of the horror movies I saw in 2019 to wrap up this year. And of course I can't do all of the horror movies from 2019. I mean, there's probably 100 indie films I haven't heard of, but I will do the 23 that I did end up seeing. But first I'm going to need you guys to like this video and subscribe for more horror content. Now, let's get into it. Coming in 23rd place, last place, unfortunately, is The Silence. This is a Quiet Place movie ripoff. Basically, it's kind of the same thing, can't make sound or else these little like demon birds, CGI demon birds, are gonna fly down and swoop you up and eat you. It just wasn't great. The CGI was absolutely terrible. The plot was basically just ripping off Quiet Place in every way, shape, and form. Didn't do anything really that original. I just was kind of disappointed by this. Not that I had high expectations for it or anything like that. It just wasn't a fantastic film. So it's going at the bottom of the list. Sorry, Silent Place, or whatever the hell that name was. Coming in 22nd place is La Llorona, The Curse of La Llorona. It's not very good. We've just had too many Conjuring spin-offs. The Annabelle series is fantastic. I really like all three of those movies. I did really like The Nun, and honestly, this movie is the very worst out of all of them. It tries to do jump scares, and none of them really land. It's not very scary, and once again, I've talked about this before, it's a bride with scary-looking eyes. We have seen that so many times in this past decade. For this new decade horror movies, I really don't want to see that anymore. We have seen so many brides in dark clothing, like a dark wedding dress, coming at people with a knife. We have seen that in almost every single movie that has come out this past decade. One thing I challenge you guys to do out there who are in Hollywood making horror movies is don't do that. Find something else, find a new monster that can scare us. I've seen that so many times, I'm just sick of it. Coming in 21st place is Black Christmas 2019. I just was, once again, another disappointment for me. I had high expectations for this film and I was really let down. It is nothing like the Black Christmas original or the 2006 remake. Doesn't follow the plotline almost at all. It has some similarities, some of the kills are the same, but overall this film just was a complete disappointment. Certain characters made decisions that I just don't feel like they would have made. There was one point where one of the college girls was actually working with the demon cult's frat and helped them out, and it's like, what girl would work with those kind of people? That makes no sense. It's the dumbest character choice I have ever seen in a movie. Oh, and she also ends up getting killed like moments after she decides to help them. One of the dumbest character decisions I have ever seen in a movie. I have so many problems with this, and you can watch my Black Christmas 2019 review to hear me talk about all of them. Coming in 20th place is Velvet Buzzsaw. This was a movie that came out right at the beginning of the year, I believe in late January, I could be wrong about that. This film overall it didn't do anything interesting. It looks like a really cool, like artsy horror film, but it really just wasn't that interesting. It's basically Night at the Museum, but horror, which sounds like an interesting concept on paper. This movie just did not execute it very well. And you're gonna hate me for this, but I'm not a very big Jake Gyllenhaal fan. The only movie I have ever liked him in was that last Spider-Man movie. He was fantastic. It felt like I was watching a different actor. But overall, I'm just not a big fan of Jake Gyllenhaal-centered films. They're usually just not great to me. And this film was a key example of that. Doesn't really do a lot of scary stuff, and when it does, it doesn't land. It is very artsy. I will say some of the visuals in this film are really cool, really interesting, like works of art. The paintings come to life and kill people and stuff. That's interesting on paper, but just you gotta execute it well, movie. Come on! Coming in 19th place is In the Tall Grass. Now, I usually really like Stephen King adaptations to the books that I liked. This was not exactly a story that I was a huge fan of. It's Joe Hill and Stephen King wrote this one. I'm actually a big Joe Hill fan as well. I'm actually a really big fan of him, and him and his dad came together, wrote this story, and it's kind of just a piece of shit. Patrick Wilson is in this film, and he's really good. Besides that, I didn't really love the cast. I just don't really like the idea. It's just kind of dumb overall. I feel like you could easily escape this thing if you just walk in one straight direction. I know it's supposed to be supernatural in some in its own way, but overall just not a great, I don't know how you could fill a 90-minute runtime with just people walking around in grass, and it just really gets boring after a while. Coming in 18th place is Countdown. Now, I also did a review about this one, so check that out for further analysis, but overall, just as a whole, this movie was enjoyable to watch. It was fun. Characters were very interesting, but just the plotline totally sucked. Nothing you haven't seen before. Totally unoriginal stuff. It's a phone app that kills people and after certain time runs down. I mean, how many movies have done an app now that kills people? But I will say the priest in this movie and the guy behind the counter, the phone repairman, both very great and really sold their roles. I thought that was really an interesting aspect of that movie. Coming in 17th place, and I know I'm gonna get for this, is 3 from Hell. Yeah, I just don't like Rob Zombie horror movies. I'm sorry. I love going to see his music. I see him in concert almost all the time, every time he passes through here, but I'm not a big fan of his movies. They're usually just too sexually gross for me. Or someone saying something that is just, like, the dialogue is written in such a way that is so disgusting to me. It doesn't even add to the horror or anything. The Rob Zombie Halloween movies are a big key example of this. Just that opening scene of Michael Myers' hillbilly family reimagined to be hillbillies. It's just not... it just doesn't work with me in that series. I'm not sure exactly what you would call this trilogy, the Devil's Rejects trilogy, I guess. But it's all the same characters in all 3 of those movies, and overall, I'm just not a big fan of any of these characters at all. I know some people like Die Hard love these films. Fine, love these movies all you want. I'm not a big fan of this one. Either way, 3 from Hell is probably the weakest out of all of them, I would say, from my standpoint, but that's coming from the opinion of a guy who's just not a big fan of them overall. Ding dong, your opinion is wrong. Coming in 16th place is Happy Death Day to You. The sequel to Happy Death Day from a couple years ago just wasn't very horror-y, I guess. I know these are supposed to be horror comedies, but you have to have 50-50 here, people. I mean, I need some of the horror, I need some of the comedy. I didn't really get any of the horror. This is basically just a comedy movie at this point. It was very fun to see these characters again, but it's basically just a crappier remake of the original. The one thing I did really like about this film, though, is it adds to the universe of the Happy Death Day-verse. I thought that was pretty cool. It kind of explains the events in the first movie. I'm not going to ruin that, although usually I do like to spoil things, so maybe I should just spoil it. I kind of wish this film could have gone in a totally different direction. I do really like Tree. She's obviously the best character on screen in this whole film, but I kind of liked the direction this film was going right from the get-go. It had one of Tree's friends reliving the same day over and over again instead of her, and I think that would have been a lot better of a movie to see one of her other friends experience this, and then she maybe already knows how to get through this kind of crap because she had done it before in the last movie. So why can't she just help this other guy? That would have been I think that would have been more of an interesting movie. Coming in 15th place is The Dead Don't Die. This is that weird zombie movie with Bill Murray and Adam Driver, and I will tell you what, it kinda sucked. It has the quirkiest and drier than dry humor in it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's so dry the zombies in this movie turn into dust when they get killed, which is kinda disappointing because I feel like the one reason I go and see zombie movies is so I can see a bunch of corpses get hacked up, blood spraying everywhere. If you've ever seen the movie, Brain Dead or Dead Alive, it has 2 titles for some reason. That's my second favorite zombie movie of all time. I will talk about the first one in a ranking video I'm sure that I'll be doing sometime soon. But it's just all blood and guts. It's zombies being chopped up. That's what I want to see in a zombie horror film. This movie, it's more of just kind of a comedy that they just kind of threw together with a bunch of A-list actors, bunch of stars. Coming in 14th place is Child's Play 2019. I actually really enjoyed this movie. It does the one thing that I really always, if you're gonna remake a movie, do it differently. That's my one rule about remakes. If you're gonna go in and you're gonna remake something from the past that is famous, you're gonna use that title, well, do something different. Don't just remake the same movie. So many horror films have been remade into crappier versions of the original, For example, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, I actually kind of like the Friday the 13th remake, so I'm not going to say that. I have very mixed feelings about Child's Play 2019. It's kind of an FU to the original creators because they just did it to basically as a cash grab to make some money so that they can keep the rights, blah, blah, blah. It's why they make all these remakes. Disney is the biggest culprit of all of them. I also did like that this movie took Chucky in a different direction. He's not a possessed doll in this version. Instead, he's just a malfunctioning robotic doll voiced by Luke Skywalker. I just think that you're never gonna get better than the original. This movie does do some cool things overall, but I like the original series better. And the other thing that sucks about this remake is the original series isn't dead. They just came out with a new Chucky movie 2 years ago, and then they make this remake like the series is dead or something and they're trying to revitalize it. That's not the case at all here, unfortunately, and it was basically just a FU to all the guys from the original Chucky movie, so that kind of sucks, and that's why I'm ranking this one so low. Coming in 13th place is Pet Sematary 2019. This is another remake that I feel like makes a lot of new decisions, which is cool. He took it in a whole new area, new direction. That's great, I love that again, but also kind of fails in ways that the original does not. You're never gonna get better, then dead is better. But unfortunately, John Lithgow just completely ignores the accent, doesn't even try, and goes, "Dead is better." Just does. God, when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, nope, not seeing this movie. But I will say John Lithgow does actually give a pretty good performance. I wish he would have done the main accent, although nobody does the main accent in this movie, so it's a little weird. But overall, still a pretty solid horror film. I really like the twist halfway through this movie, which if you haven't seen it, you're about to get it spoiled because instead of little Gage getting hit by the truck, it's the girl, which is totally unexpected, totally blindsided me with that. I thought that was an interesting new direction with this film because I really was not expecting it. And then the ending scene is also kind of different than the original or from the book. And it does something completely different, and I respect this movie for that. Coming in 12th place is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I think the only reason this movie gets up there for me is because it was a book I was read as a kid, and it still scares me to this day, some of the pictures in there, I'm not gonna lie, and to see those characters on the big screen was really cool. The one that always terrified me the most was the big blob lady in the hospital. It was pretty scary to see her on the screen, I'm not gonna lie. I just kinda wish this movie was more violent. It could have been this really huge scare fest. You saw it as a kid and now it's coming as in a movie as an adult. It's kind of disappointing, honestly, because these creature designs are epic. I love just about all of them, even the original one that was basically just a ghost. It's just a little too PG-13 for my taste. Coming in 11th place is Hellboy 2019. I'm not gonna lie, I was making this list just about all year, and I just decided to put Hellboy as number 11. I liked this movie, but I don't feel like it deserves this high of a ranking. I'm just not about to swap a bunch of stuff last minute like that because I should probably do a rewatch before. I did a few rewatches on a few movies, Annabelle 3 being one of them. That's why it's gonna be ranked a little higher than I had it before. But Hellboy 2019, I remember really liking it after I saw it, and it was just critically panned. And nobody liked this movie. Everyone was like, don't see it, it sucks, it's kind of a crappy remake. I kind of liked it, honestly. I really liked David Harbour as Hellboy, and I liked Jin from Lost is in this movie. He's a cheetah dude, which I've never even heard of that character before this. I think this movie is criminally underrated though, so go check it out if you haven't seen it. They're probably not gonna do anything with it, unfortunately, but I do think it does deserve a little bit more attention than it got. And finally, starting the top 10 of this list, we're gonna kick it off with Annabelle Comes Home. Yes! I actually really liked this movie, although a lot of people just said it was a piece of crap. This is the movie I've been waiting to see in the Conjuring universe for so long. We've seen Annabelle in the creepy room with all the artifacts, and I've just been waiting for her to just have this movie with all the other crazy creatures and stuff. And it was slightly disappointing, but overall I still really enjoyed it. My biggest problem with this movie, because there's not a whole lot of problems, I really like all the characters, we get to see the Warrens in an Annabelle film, which we really haven't until now, but my biggest problem with this film, and it's a little thing, is that it sets up way too much And yes, it does have to set up some new stuff, but why not? Why couldn't we have just seen some of the monsters from like The Conjuring 2? The Nun isn't in this movie. We could have used all those characters, people we've already seen before, characters we've already seen their backstories, where the haunted stuff came from. But instead it just sets up all new stuff. Why? Because we need more Conjuring sequels. No, we don't. Overall though, Annabelle 3 is worth the watch if you haven't seen it, because I know a lot of people skipped out on this one because it didn't get very good reviews. This was a great addition to the Conjuring universe, in my opinion. Coming in 9th place is Brightburn. I actually really like the concept of this movie, probably the most original of the entire year. I feel like it wasn't executed too fantastically. The characters make a lot of dumb decisions, which I just don't feel like they would have really made. The mom is constantly defending their child, which isn't their child. It's a baby they found in a meteor. Which I understand having your judgment clouded when you've been caring for somebody for so long, but if you start finding obvious symbols that your son is basically Superman and killing a bunch of people and being a little creepy with some of the girls at school, I think you gotta do something about that. And then it sets up stuff that doesn't go anywhere, which is my biggest pet peeve when it comes to movies. You set up that the thing in the garage is the only thing that can hurt your son, and then finally when you come face to face with the kid and he's gonna kill you, you don't stab him in the back and he catches it before it hurts him. Don't set up something if you're not gonna go anywhere with it. If you want your kid to be an indestructible force that is just gonna go through and kill everybody in this movie eventually, and you want to see the demise of your characters, don't set up a way for your character to get out of it. If you want a happy ending and you want if the kid would have died at the end of the movie, which I can't believe I'm saying that's a happy ending, but he's the antagonist, then yes, set that up, but it didn't go anywhere. He just picks her up and drops her and kills her, and that's the end of the movie. So that was kind of dumb. I felt like, why even incorporate that into the plot if it's gonna go nowhere? Coming in 8th place is It Chapter 2, another movie with a lot of weird plot stuff that I don't know why they did. I'm gonna talk trash about this movie all day long, but at the end of the day, it is a good movie, and I really did enjoy it. I had tears in my eyes at the end of it. All the actors in this movie did a really good job. They all really look like their kid counterparts as well. I feel like they had great attention to detail in this film as well. It was very consistent with the first film, which I really liked. Is of course they had to film new stuff with the kids, which honestly, as much as I like the kids, I could have done without the new kid scenes. It was almost like you had a great cast of kids. Why not just make another movie with the kids again? Change the rules with Pennywise. And I know this is blasphemous, but what if you just changed Stephen King's work, made another film about 2 years later, Pennywise comes up from his hole and attacks the kids. Why not just make another movie with that? And then they defeat him as children, as like slightly older adolescent kids. I think that would have been a better movie, honestly. Coming in 7th place is Crawl, and I realize a lot of people are going to disagree with this. This is the alligator movie that came out earlier this summer, and I have major respect for this movie. It's a bare bones horror monster movie that I haven't seen a movie like this come out, that was a new movie, come out in a while. We don't have to have all these high budget, crazy horror movies. I just like little low scale stuff like this. It's simple, it's to the point, it's just a monster monster alligators coming and trying to eat people. That's it, that's all it is. Bare bones, nothing, not too much to it, and it was an effective horror movie. Coming in 6th place is Zombieland 2. I effing loved this movie. So good, absolutely so good. Not a single disappointing moment in this whole film. I absolutely love the fact that we can take a movie from 10 years ago and just bring back the same cast 10 years later and just create a new fantastic film just like the original. I mean, it does everything that I wanted to see in a sequel, because I loved all the new characters. I loved the plot. I loved the old characters still had their same vibe going on. It kept me interested the whole time through. The only thing I didn't like about this film, I think, is that they introduce new zombies right at the beginning, and then they really never come into the plot except the indestructible ones. We never see those zombies ever in this film, except for we see one at the end, but there's like two. Why would you even introduce the other two if they're just not even gonna come into the plot at all? I don't know, that was kind of weird, but I can live with that. It's a little minor detail, kind of me just being picky. I love this film overall and definitely deserves the number 6 spot in my list. Now we're going to be kicking off the top 5, and before I get there, I just want to say please like this video and subscribe if you like my content. It really helps overall, and I'm trying to get to 200 before the end of the year. So hopefully by the time I upload this video, I'm getting closer. I'm in the 199 area. That'd be pretty cool. Coming in 5th place is The Perfection. If you haven't seen this film, highly recommend it. It kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but check it out. It's on Netflix. I think it's a fantastic, well-executed horror film that I haven't seen a movie like this in a while. It's probably the only movie that has 2 twists that I didn't see coming. In just about every movie I can guess the twist. The Perfection doesn't have a whole lot of gore or anything like too terrifying imagery-wise, but when it does, it's horrifying. It has some really gross moments as well. It has just about everything you want in a horror film. It makes you think, it's got gross stuff, it doesn't have jump scares, which is something that every horror movie nowadays relies on. But this movie scares you with its environment, with its imagery, things that horror movies should scare you with. It's a very intelligent film, and it was very underappreciated in my opinion. So go check it out on Netflix if you haven't seen it, or you don't even know what I'm talking about, look it up on Netflix and go watch it. Number 4 is Us. I loved this film. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. Us is just a kind of an original concept and is very iconic in my opinion. I feel like it's very has really influenced pop culture as well. I love the red jumpsuit and the creepy looking eyes and the scissors and all that. Has really, when it's funny, it's funny. When it's scary. That's what's great about it. Because not a lot of horror movies can do that nowadays, I feel like. Only a few directors can achieve that very well, and Jordan Peele is one of the 3 in my opinion. So definitely go support anything he makes, because I think he's fantastic, and he can do comedy and horror. I mean, not a lot of people have been successful in both those areas, so that's really impressive. So props to Jordan Peele. Coming in 3rd place is Dr. Sleep. I loved Dr. Sleep, and nobody freaking liked it at all. The one thing I'm gonna say about this film, I'm gonna say one thing, because I gotta make this short. Go see it. Just buy this movie. Go see it. I don't understand why this movie didn't make any money at all. This movie completely bombed at the box office. Nobody saw it. I don't understand. The Shining is one of the biggest horror films probably of all time. The sequel comes out. Yes, it's been like 40 years, but I can't believe nobody saw this movie. Why would they release this in November? And there was no advertisements, nothing. They should have waited till next May to release this film, advertise the F out of it in the next 6 months. I don't understand. This was a fantastic movie. Honestly, out of all the movies I saw this year, this is probably my top 3 as well. It's just a fantastically made horror film. I loved the new characters, Rose the Hat being probably my favorite character this whole movie. I had tears in my eyes when certain characters died. I don't know. I could talk about it for an hour and just tell you how great this movie is. If you haven't seen it, go buy it on Blu-ray, support it any way you possibly can, because I love it so much. Coming in 2nd place for all the movies that came out in 2019 is The Lighthouse. Yes, and I even have a shirt for it. You thought that it was gonna be number 1, didn't you? Well, I tricked you with my seagull shirt. Squawk! I think this movie is a horror masterpiece. I think if nobody else appreciates it for the rest of time, then I will just snuggle up with it in bed and then just watch this film for eternity. This movie has everything you want in a film. Farts, weird imagery, mermaids, sex. It has just about everything you could ever want in a film or pornography. Robert Eggers is an absolute genius, and if you don't see this movie, at least watch The Witch, because both are fantastic. I think this one is slightly better in my opinion, but definitely check this movie out if you didn't see it. This is another one that kind of flew under the radar. It wasn't even in theaters the weekend it came out where I'm at. I had to wait a week to go see it. I don't know what was up with that. It's a great movie though, and I absolutely recommend you see it. Even if you're not a big fan of the weird like movies like this, like Midsommar is another example of films like this from this year. This one is one that I feel like the general audience would like more. There's not so much gross stuff in it. There is a mermaid vagina at one point. Go see The Lighthouse. And coming in 1st place, probably one of my favorite horror films of all time is Midsommar. This is the next movie from Ari Aster that came out this year. It was highly anticipated by myself after I saw Hereditary, which is my favorite horror film of all time. This was not a sequel, but it basically has the same plot, except it takes place in creepy ass Sweden, and I loved it. This was a fantastic horror film overall. This movie just does a great job of scaring you without showing you too much or doing too many jump scares. In fact, this movie only really has one jump scare in it. The movie uses its unknown environment, its creepy imagery, once again to scare you and just give you this eerie feeling throughout. It has really like positive music too, which is the weird thing. It's happier, like Swedish cult music. I think the scariest villains in horror films are the ones that think they're doing the right thing. They're kind of tricking these people into coming to their festival so that they can sacrifice them, and they think that that's the right thing to do. They think that, oh, these people should be grateful that they're part of this awesome sacrifice, this great thing that only happens every 90 years. But nobody wants to get thrown into bear skin and covered in blood and guts and be so drugged up you can't move and then caught on fire and burnt up to death. Nobody really wants that. That's just crazy. And I think that is so interesting to me. That mindset. When you have a movie with characters that think that they're doing the right thing, that is the scariest thing to me. Real life people that actually exist in our world, that is the thing that will make you go home and have nightmares, because that is a thing that can really happen. It's horrifying. And that's the kind of movie that I like personally the most. Something that really just, when you can't sleep at night after seeing a movie like this, because what if those people come over from Sweden and try and get me to sacrifice myself for their weird ass cult? Thank you so much for watching my video talking about ranking all of the films that came out from this year that I saw. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching me this year. It's only my first year and I'm doing so good. My Zombieland video just hit 1,000 views and I'm really excited about what I'm gonna do next year. What do you guys want me to cover this year? I'm definitely going to do just about all the new movies, gonna do a review of them. I'm doing a whole series on Friday the 13th starting in January. I'm gonna be listing out all the scares, every scary point in those movies, so you can either fast forward or just skip to those points in the movies. I don't know, whatever you want to do with that knowledge, you can do. I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. Thank you once again for watching my channel. All the support has been so fantastic. I've only had positive stuff come at me, so thank you guys so much for all that. Don't forget to kill it in 2020, y'all.